I think a lot of people understand the power of big oil in the United States. I don't think they fully understand just how ruthless they can be if you get in their way. And so if you could talk about that right off the bat, the ruthlessness of Chevron, because you got in their way, what that's been all about.
Well, thank you. And I apologize for being late. I didn't know that you knew I was on Katie's show.
I was watching. I was being all prepped.
That's so funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you for having me. And in all seriousness, the short story is I helped indigenous peoples in Ecuador win a historic pollution judgment against Chevron back in 2011 for $9.5 billion. Since that time, Chevron has used 60 law firms, 2,000 lawyers, and probably about $2-3 billion to try to demonize, criminalize me, and attack me, and really destroy my life. And it's culminated over the last 2 years of me being put under house arrest without being convicted of a crime. Not by the government, but by a private Chevron law firm called Seward and Kissel. Now, you might be saying, what the F?
Yeah, I don't understand.
How does that happen in America?
I saw how it happened, but I still don't understand how you are literally stuck in your house based on no due process. Like,
yeah,
I don't understand.
I have an ankle bracelet. This is the battery. This is the battery. I stick this around the bracelet is on my left ankle. It's shackled. It's a black thing, and it hasn't come off for 659 days. I
do criminal defense. I'm familiar with the bracelet.
Okay, so you know, yeah.
I am.
Usually electronic monitoring is like an alternative to prison. In my case, it's designed, since I didn't commit a crime and I've never committed a crime and I'm only charged with a misdemeanor, it's really designed to keep me locked by Chevron, to keep me locked up so I can't do my human rights work successfully, as I had been doing, and continue to hold the company accountable by enforcing the Ecuador judgment against their assets in other countries. When I was charged criminally by this judge in the United States, I was in Canada working with lawyers there to enforce the Ecuador judgment. And I had to come back, and I was shocked that they locked me up. I'm the only person in America, lawyer or non-lawyer, who's been deprived of his liberty prior to trial on a misdemeanor. And it's been almost 2 years. The max sentence, by the way, ever given a lawyer convicted of what I'm charged with is 90 days of home confinement.
Right. So if and when this does get somewhere, there's a likelihood that you're still going to get time. Now, the question is, would they give you time served?
Well, I think they shouldn't obviously let me go at that point based on the time I've already spent at home for a misdemeanor.
Yeah.
That's not really what this is about. From the
it's reprisal. It's reprisal, right? I mean,
it's retaliation is punishment.
Talk a little bit about the background of the case in Ecuador and how you got involved in it and what Chevron was doing to the people there.
Okay. By the way, my name is misspelled on your.
It is. Oh, did I?
There's
I
no
have the
N.
N. All right.
The second.
Not here. Do you see? This is me.
No,
that was him.
Okay.
All right.
Me?
So I'm.
Then you say attorney, non-attorney. I get it. No, I'm just joking.
We're saying.
So this is what happened. Texaco, which is now owned by Chevron, went into the Ecuadorian Amazon in the 60s and signed a contract. Thank you. To drill over a 1,500 square mile area, and they over 30 years, by design, this was not an accident. They deliberately dumped literally 16 billion gallons of cancer-causing oil waste into rivers and streams that indigenous peoples relied on for their drinking water, their bathing, and their fishing. When they started to do this deliberate dumping, many of the indigenous leaders approached the Texaco engineers and said, what is this? Like, what's this black stuff in our water? And the Texaco engineers had a policy to tell them that it was like milk, it contained vitamins, and they had nothing to worry about. The level of abuse is something I really had never even seen before or witnessed or even heard about. And over years, there was just this mass industrial poisoning of what had been a pristine, beautiful rainforest, a place where the people who lived there didn't need any money to be rich. I mean, I tell that to children. I often go speak in schools, and it's like, one of the questions I ask kids is like, can you imagine a world where you can be rich and not have money? Okay. This was that place.
Yeah.
People had no money, but they had food, they had clean water, they had you know, the medicines of the forest, the shelter, culture, happiness, prosperity. And it was all, you know, thousands of years of this was literally wiped out in a matter of 10 years because Texaco went in and played God and decided to save $3 a barrel on their production costs. They were going to dump billions of gallons of cancer-causing oil waste under the waters that people needed to survive. And to this day, I mean, no one knows how many people have actually died because the data is so, you know, limited. But I can tell you from the data that does exist, plus my anecdotal experience visiting these villages, I've been there 250 times. I assure you thousands of people have died of cancer because of this. It is, as Paul Passimino of Amazon Watch says, it is a slow mass murder. 3, 5 people every day, day after day, year after year. Thousands of people are dying, and thousands more will die unless this problem is addressed, unless Chevron complies with the court judgment, pays the money so there can be a cleanup.
Yeah, it's so outrageous. And yet we know this happens, but it really happens to the most vulnerable people that are not in a position to speak up for themselves. And it's very fortunate for them that someone like you took this on. How did you first get into where you were in Ecuador and even know of this?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I mean, I learned about this in the early 90s when I was still in law school, and a very good friend of mine's father was from Ecuador, and he was an American citizen, but he's like, he heard about it, and he's like, you can't believe what's going on down in my country. And he organized, his name is Cristobal Boniface. He organized a trip of lawyers and scientists to go do an investigation. And we all went down there in April of 1993. There's pictures of me on that trip. I wish you had them to put up. Didn't have the gray hair I do now. But, you know, we toured the area and we witnessed what can only be described as an apocalyptic nightmare. I mean, there were literally lakes and pools of oil on the ground of the forest that had been left there by Texaco. They had built 1,000 open air, unlined toxic waste pits. They dumped the waste from the, you know, when you drill a well, all the stuff comes up from the ground. You got to put that stuff somewhere. And they would put it in these waste pits that leached into the soils and groundwater. And they also put pipes in the side of many of them, and they ran off. It rains a lot in the forest. So when it would rain, they would run the contents into the nearby rivers and streams. And they set up a system to deliberately pollute and poison the ecosystem, you know. And you might not know this, but there's a whole international movement now to make ecocide a 5th atrocity crime, like genocide.
Yeah.
Ecocide. And ecocide is defined by most as the deliberate destruction of the natural environment such that it can no longer sustain human life. And what Chevron did in this part of Ecuador, to me, is the very definition of ecocide.
Yeah. And that's probably not the only place that they're doing that. I mean, this is something that's probably going on in how many places?
Well, it's funny you say that because there's a friend of mine, Dr. Nan Greer, who's in the process of doing a study of all of Chevron's environmental problems around the world. And she's discovered some devastating evidence that in dozens of countries around the world, Chevron is facing massive liabilities for polluting, not just Ecuador. I think Ecuador might be the worst because it was like deliberate and it went on for so long, and the environment's such a delicate ecosystem that's really the lungs of the planet, and there's indigenous peoples. I mean, there's so many factors that come together down there, but they do this in a lot of countries.
Yeah, it's really disgusting, and then they get away with it, and yet it seems that the government has been taken over by them. I've seen they handed their case off to Chevron. So that's what I need you to really walk me through is how can this be happening? Okay, like I don't understand.
This is the craziest part. I think it's insane. Yeah. Basically, Chevron wanted to figure out a way to stop me from doing my work. So they sued me in the US, they denied me a jury, and a judge found that I had bribed a trial judge in Ecuador, which is totally false, and it's been rejected by 28 appellate judges in Ecuador and Canada who've actually looked at the evidence. But this one judge, this one US trial judge, determined that, and on the basis of that, he imposed court costs on me in favor of Chevron. And I didn't have the money. I'm talking about millions of dollars. I mean, he didn't have the money. Chevron then got him to issue an order to get control of my computer and cell phone on the theory that I was hiding money, and they knew that was BS. But what they really wanted from those devices was to find out our strategy, where we were going to file lawsuits to enforce the judgment, communications among attorneys, all the attorney-client privilege information that is sacrosanct in the legal profession.
Right.
So rather than turn over my computer and cell phone to Chevron, I appealed the order and asked Judge Kaplan to stay his order. And while his order that I was appealing was pending, he charged me with criminal contempt of court for not complying with his order, the lawfulness I was challenging on appeal. That's never happened in America before. That's my crime.
Right. And then they brought in a private firm.
Under what's an obvious pretext.
So how is it that they're prosecuting you with an outside firm? Like I don't understand how you can do that.
Yeah, this is another key point. When a judge charges a lawyer with criminal contempt of court, it's in theory, he's disobeyed a court order, but it's such a arrogant way that the lawyer went about it. It's criminal as opposed to civil contempt, which results in a fine, not jail. I don't think what I did is civil contempt, much less criminal contempt. But a judge is required to take the charges to the regular federal prosecutor, in this case, the SDNY in New York. The SDNY rejected the case, refused to prosecute me. So Judge Kaplan, Louis A. Kaplan's the name of the judge, he appointed a private law firm to prosecute me, which astounded me. You would think if the regular feds don't want to go, it ends, right? No. He appoints a private law firm. They asked for me to be locked up. And I started to research the law firm after I got locked up in my home, and I realized they had extensive and close financial ties to the oil and gas industry, including to Chevron. And that Chevron, they admitted 7 months after they locked me up that Chevron had been a client of the firm in 2018, the year before they locked me up. So I'm being prosecuted by Chevron. This is the first corporate prosecution in U.S. history. I believe it is illegal and unconstitutional. But Kaplan, who charged me, also appointed the judge, Loretta Preska, instead of going through the random case selection process, which is required by rules here. Loretta Preska is a leader of the Federalist Society. Chevron is a major funder of the Federalist Society, which is a pro-corporate, right-wing legal group. So I'm being prosecuted by a Chevron law firm. The judge has financial ties to Chevron, and the charging judge, whose charges are rejected by the regular prosecutor, also has investments in Chevron. So this is a Chevron show through and through. It's not a fair proceeding. It's not a fair trial. And it's an embarrassment, I think, for our country. But it's happening, and I'm really asking everyone to notice it and to step in and raise hell about it, because the only thing that's going to stop it is public outcry and some actions by congresspersons, by the Department of Justice. But people need to stand up, man. This is so wrong. It is such a violation of the rule of law. It is so inconsistent with the values of any kind of democracy. But yet it's happening, and happening in particular to me and my family. So we need help. We need people to speak out.
Okay, so tell me, what was the judge's name again?
The judge who charged me is Louis A. Kaplan. And
that's why you're having the contempt charge. This is the person who is holding you in criminal contempt of court.
That's
correct. This person. Yeah.
He's charged me. He's charged me.
Right.
I haven't been found guilty yet.
No,
but
I
won't have a jury, but yeah.
I mean, but you've already basically been now incarcerated for 20 months for contempt. I mean, that's already outrageous, even if you were in contempt. Thanks for watching. If you want to support our mission to transform politics into service, please like this video, subscribe, follow us on social media, and consider joining our Patreon, where you'll get early access to our interviews as well as other exclusive content. Links are in the description. Peace out.